Hold on.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, my bad.
Can you guys hear me?
You can hear you just fine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're black internet. You fucking up.
Oh, no. I just, I'm finding like it's getting to the point of like a can of worms or just straight up ridiculousness. You're now picking and choosing who gets to be vegan and who does not based upon
I'm vegan.
having a pet.
Right?
Well, I mean, I would say
I'll
call that thing, but that's a different thing.
No, one thing. The definition of vegan is pretty concrete and clear, right? Like what basically.
No, it's not.
I would disagree with that. I think.
What's the definition of
One
veganism?
Veganism is someone who respects animal rights and tries to avoid consumption of animal products to the best extent possible. As long as there's
the definition of animal rights, everyone gives animals different rights.
Everyone is not a vegan. Nope, that is not true.
First of all vegans do not believe in the concept of animal rights, and that's not the thing in which determines if they're vegan or not. What I thought being vegan was, and this is just what I thought based upon the many vegans who have told me about the vegan society definition, that veganism is simply to avoid animal exploitation as much as possible.
Yeah, that is one definition, but it needs revision because it was coined like 80 years ago. I think
so what's
relevant
your definition then?
My definition is to treat animals the way you would want to be treated if you were in that position. That is to me being a vegan.
Well, that's just doing to others. That's been around forever.
Yeah, but that's golden rule, ain't it?
Yeah, but you're saying that if vegans don't follow this specific definition, right? Like if there's someone who's on the vegan society fucking board and they don't follow that definition, therefore they are just plant-based and not vegan, that just seems super nonsensical and just gatekeepy.
Okay, here's the thing, Patty. Like, you could have different ways to look at this topic, but then the outcomes are similar, right? Like anybody who promotes animal exploitation in any way or form is not a vegan, okay? So if you're going to promote animal exploitation by supporting the pet industry, you're not vegan.
Wait,
I can agree with that, right?
Are you supporting the pet industry? Yeah, but the problem is that are you supporting the pet industry by going to an ASPCA accredited shelter and picking up a pet? That is a transaction, by the way.
No, that is not support. That you're not You're not indulging in a financial transaction there to incentivize the breeding. You're not doing that to incentivize the breeding, are you? It is to facilitate the rehoming, whatever medical expenses were there. It is for that, right? It is not for.
But they are in effect pet owners.
They're pet guardians. I would use that word instead of pet.
No, stop. They are pet owners. They are by legal definition pet owners.
Yeah, but I feel
legal definition, yes.
But this is the problem. This is the same thing that was going on earlier. Was that you like to take definitions suited to the way you feel, which in some respects is fine, but in respects of having a conversation or a debate, which is what you wanted, that's not okay. That's like just it gets to a point of just being blatantly dishonest. They are.
No, it's not.
Yeah, he's already been dishonest. It's not like
I'm not being dishonest. You're being dishonest by saying you're okay with being murdered, raped.
How am I being dishonest?
That is dishonesty.
When did he say that?
I didn't say that.
That is dishonesty. No, Patty did not say that. SD said that. SD said that. Okay.
Where did he say that?
I was responding to SD.
By the way, where's the dishonesty, right? I'm not gonna just sit around and let you get away with that. Where's the dishonesty on my part?
Yeah, when you say things like you're okay with being murdered, raped, and holocausted,
just
so you could be sound.
Like, what if that's my position? You don't know that it isn't my position, right?
No, I asked you, right? Like, would you want this done to you?
So I affirmed it, and you had in response is to call me a liar.
No, you affirmed it.
Yeah.
Which means that okay, so will you be really okay with someone sticking a pike up your ass?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, wait. So if you want to get into a debate about dairy, that's one of my specialties. You really want to go there, dude? Like,
wait.
No, leave him be. He wants to call me a liar, right? But he doesn't know that I'm a liar.
We can have a debate. We can have a debate as long as we have some common axioms, right? Like some common preferences
and
or some
what
notions
would
of
those be, right?
By the way, I can jump in because I think that I'm usually a lot more I guess, relaxed when it comes to these things. I don't think we actually need to agree on much. I just think we need to agree on like maybe semantics, just like the definitions of the
Seriously,
words
yeah.
we use. We don't have to actually agree on
Exactly.
any
Like
one.
if I value, like if we're having a conversation, I'm just gonna say the most wildly stupid, not stupid. I'm just gonna say the most wildly like gross thing possible. If we're having a conversation about sex and I say that I like getting dick down in the ass, right? And you don't, does that mean we can't have a conversation about sex?
No, we're not just talking about sex here. We're talking about ethics of sex, right? Like ethics of this thing, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about
Ethics
ethics,
of sex.
Great, if I say that it's okay to choke your partner and you say it's not okay to choke your partner, can we have a conversation about sex?
Well, I mean, I'll go even
if you're
further to
talking
say
about the
that what's the
ethics
point
of
of
it,
even conversing if you already agree? That'll be my point. If you already agree
Yeah,
on all ethics,
seriously.
why are we
Seriously.
discussing
no,
anything?
no, I cannot convince you to choose different moral axioms, right? That's something you've chosen for yourself. I can only
You can try. That's hard as hell to do for anyone.
Yeah, I said that
for
earlier, right?
anti. That's what I try to do with SD by saying, hey, what you say as okay, I'm not sure you really mean it. And then he says, how do you know my preferences?
Well, yeah,
more time.
because you're telling me that you're doubting what I'm
I cannot
saying,
do anything
right?
more than I cannot do anything more than say that, hey, that's not really your biological preference. You wouldn't want to be killed or
But you
raped or
wouldn't
whatever.
know that, right? You couldn't know that. So
I can only know that
you're
inductively.
essentially
I can only know
calling
that
me a
inductively.
liar.
Wait, I can only know that
for all
inductively.
you know.
Wait,
I can
VSS,
only
I
know
think
that.
there's something interesting here. We can actually have a cool conversation. So, do you think that we all like implicitly have some natural preferences towards certain moral positions?
It's where
I think,
he's gonna end up, but like
No, I think that's what he's already
wanna.
assuming. This is
Yeah.
actually not uncommon
no,
for many vegans I encounter. They actually assume that we're like a shared values there. So, do you assume like we
no,
all have like some innate value against like let's say suffering or something like that? It's usually
no. If you don't have that, like, I don't know where we see each other in eye to eye. We don't. If we don't, there is no point in having this conversation. It's only going to boil down to might mixed right at that point. So veganism by itself is not a might mixed right position.
It wouldn't
Put
be
aside
might makes right.
But I think we might be misunderstanding that term. But saying that,
Yeah,
we can say
he's
that we disagree
definitely
on
getting it
ethics.
wrong.
But yeah, we can say that that's fine, right? Because I think that's actually how people learn if they are vegans or not. They read into it. They say like, do I value the suffering? Do I value these animal ethics positions? And if they do, they can go towards veganism. If they don't, you can try to appeal to them. That's just like basic political
No,
activism. And
but
I'm sympathetic to it.
but anti, what is your moral axiom? Like, if I don't know that, how can I even engage in any form of conversation?
Like we can like restart this with mine. Like let's say that I value certain notions of like social autonomy, and let's say that, and then I can say that where do animals lie in that? I think that when it comes to notions of social autonomy, animals sort of fall out of that because these notions that
Wait,
we're talking about don't really exist.
can you explain a little bit more by social autonomy? I'm not sure I understand you fully. Just so I know you know where you're coming from. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we're talking about social forces. Like we have social constructs, like for example, money. Right?
Okay.
Money can be a very socially restricting thing. I can lose access to healthcare, housing, not because of physical access or restrictions, because of these social notions. Likewise,
Okay.
And as far as animals are concerned, I'm not sure that they necessarily exist among them. They're sort of around, but they don't. There's not really.
No.
They just sort of fall out of most notions of autonomy, at least in that social sense. Now, this
So
doesn't mean that we
you
can't
saying that?
value animals, right? We can still value animals for other reasons, and I even say all the time that that I can be generally fine with veganism. I just sort of apply agnosticism to them, just because they sort of like none of my values particularly matter as far as animals are concerned. So if I'm vegan or not, it doesn't really affect that at all whatsoever.
No, when you say social autonomy, do you think that's your moral start line or baseline, or
For me, yeah, that's pretty high up there for me. Yeah, definitely. If not the highest, definitely very, very high.
So here's another thing, right? Like, this is where I agree with Sam Harris. He says morality is ultimately about well-being of sentient beings.
Sam
right?
Harris.
Oh
God. Utilitarian. Okay.
No.
Wait. Actually tell me everything.
Just because
I need to know.
one second, anti. Just because I agree with him on this particular definition, that doesn't mean I subscribe to his entirety of consequentialist work.
That's fine. Okay? I just sort of understand where we're going. We're going over like the utilitarianism angle, right?
No. I'm not a utilitarian.
But Sam Harris talking about maximizing well-being, that is kind of utilitarian.
No, he talks about maximizing well-being, but I'm just saying what we consider morality, it pertains to the well-being of creatures, okay? Conscious creatures.
Even then, that's just semantic kicking can down the road. Because if you ask me what well-being is, I'm just going to tell you autonomy. Then someone might say reducing suffering. Someone might say pleasure. It's kicking the can down the road, but you haven't really moved past the semantics. It's whatever.
No, which is exactly why we need to agree on a starting point, right? Like even if you say your morality is contingent upon social autonomy, it ultimately boils down to well-being of certain creatures who value social autonomy. Is that correct?
No. Again, I feel like
No,
the
it wouldn't
biggest
be
issue I have with these
correct.
kinds of systems is that they're unfalsifiable, right? Like, how would you prove that wrong if you hold that position?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that part? I
I'm
couldn't hear
saying
you.
so. Like, think about. I think of, like, in general, like, it's very important to think about the feeders for your own position. And I think that the issue with that position is that it's unfalsifiable. Like, how would you prove that that's actually that we don't value, right? So as long as you have a single person that just does not hold that value, which I would say is me, then I would say it defeats it. But it doesn't seem like you set up a goalpost that can prove yourself wrong. And I think that's dangerous. It leads yourself to dogma pretty quickly.
Right. So your positions must be unfalsifiable. I'm sorry, falsifiable.
Falsifiable, yeah, as a starting point.
Yeah, falsifiable. Right. So when you say social autonomy, are you saying that what constitutes moral action according to you? Like, how do you distinguish between moral and immoral?
Yeah. So now this is where again the meta ethics come in. I'll say I'm an anti-realist, so I'm going to approach this from a more preference-based thing of just like the good will just be things I prefer, the bad will be things I don't, or things I'm averse to, right? And that's fine. But what you're talking about is actually not necessarily a moral claim at all. You're saying that like everyone values this. That's actually a bit more of an empirical claim, saying that this is what people have some emotional connection to, or this is what people view as something. Which is why I say that there might have to be a bit more substantiation there. Because you can't just say that's a preference if you're just saying that yes, this is the case that people hold this value.
No, I don't think you've kind of addressed my question. My question was, what constitutes moral and immoral? Like, what do you think is immoral? Like, if I were to ask you, do you think raping someone is immoral?
Why would you even ask
I would say
that?
tautologically yes, because that's inferred when we use the word rape. The connotation is already that it's immoral.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat that? Can you just slow down a bit? Sorry.
No problem. I'm saying that when we use terms, they have normative connotations associated with them. Murder, for has wrongful. Wrong, yes, by the definition of the word. Rape, likewise.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you for the last 5 seconds. You
did cut out.
My bad. I'm saying that like rape and murder, they're wrong sort of by like the use of their term. So yes, they're wrong because like that's how we use the word rape. We don't use the word rape neutrally. It's kind of wrong when we use it. It's already assumed when we use it that it's a bad thing. So yeah.
No, but what makes it bad, or what makes it immoral? Like, do you have an answer for that?
Oh, I'm saying that in this case, the term is already denoting moral. Like if I say red apple, something like that, it's like saying red apple or something like that might already denote some certain properties in it. Rape is sort of already denoting a sort of property of wrongness in the way that we use the term. Like murder. Murder, for example, is literally wrongful killing, and wrongful killing can't not be wrong. So that's why I would say that. Now, as far as what people find wrong, that could be different. Some people might say that it could be the lack of consent that makes it wrong.
Right. Okay. Here's the thing.
Wrong. Yada yada.
Let me just say this way, right? Like killing someone by itself is neutral, right? You don't know if it's moral or immoral. If it was done as an act of self-defense, you wouldn't say it's immoral. Similarly, having sex with someone, you couldn't say if it's moral or immoral unless you knew more about the information, right? More about the context.
We can say that we both agree in this case that categorically speaking, we don't think killing someone is wrong categorically. We also don't think having sex with someone categorically is wrong, generally speaking.
Right. So what would make it right or wrong according to you? Can you just go and expound a little bit more on that?
Now in this case, I have no problem in this case appealing to just general cultural trends and just saying, usually sex without consent would be considered the immoral there, and that's usually what
why is having sex without consent immoral according to you?
It would just it would be the preference against it. I'm biased against it. I'm averse to the action. I have a negative mindset against it. I disapprove, if you will.
Okay, now let me ask you this: do you think animals consent to being forcibly impregnated, or
it doesn't matter?
That's a good question, actually. Do animals have desires? And that's actually the thing. I don't think most animals have those cognitive capacities. So I would say animals have no capacity for consent for anything. Therefore, it's a non-sequitur.
So at that point, you just leave them alone, right? That is the logical conclusion of that. You wouldn't assume liberties.
So, can a rock consent to being kicked?
No, it cannot. But a rock is not a sentient being.
So does that mean you just never kick a rock? You never move a rock for anything? The gravel in your lawn, you just kind of avoid it by all costs?
No, but a rock is not a sentient being, right? Okay, let me ask you this.
So now we're
humans,
another value there, sentience.
anti. Yes, sentient. Wait. This is why I define morality as well-being and suffering of sentient beings. Right. That's how I started off.
Yeah, you have a stupid definition, right? You're sort of like a Matt Dillahunty fan or something.
Let me come back to this. SD, once again. So here you talked about the rock, and you asked if kicking a rock requires consent. I said no, because there is a symmetry breaker there. The rock is not a sentient being, whereas the cow is a sentient being. Okay. Morality concerns sentient beings.
Yeah, but that's what you brought in, right? There's no point in bringing in a symmetry breaker between what you said and something else that you said.
Well, no, but I'm saying that. Do you think that sentient beings necessarily can give consent, or I'm trying to figure out how you're relating the consent, because it seems like the consent almost doesn't matter. The sentience is what matters to you. That's why I'm confused.
Because when you violate the consent of a sentient being, that leads to suffering at some level that might not necessarily translate to a greater degree of well-being.
But I'm saying that, do you think all sentient beings necessarily have the capacity to give consent?
They don't, right? Like, which is why you sometimes you don't assume liberties with them, and you leave them alone for the most part.
So if they don't have the capacity for consent, then I couldn't have violated their consent necessarily, right? That's
Yep.
Okay. So I don't know if, let me add a qualifier here. I did this with Patty also. I value informed consent. Okay. There is a difference between informed consent and just consenting to something, like just to acquiesce to something. Okay. I should have made it more clear. My bad. I made it clear with Patty, but let me also make it clear with you. There is a difference between informed consent and just acquiescing or agreeing to something. And I gave the example of picking up a dog. Animals might consent or dissent to something, but that doesn't mean it's informed consent or dissent, right? For instance, if you pick up a dog when the dog is not willing to be picked up, the dog might growl at you, and that is a form of dissenting, right? And under normal circumstances,
but remember where we ended up with that?
Yeah.
We ended up in a situation where there are times when if you were to take the dog to a vet, are you doing it for their greater well-being or for their suffering? And then we went into the cow in the barn or the slaughterhouse. I very well know where it went to.
What does it matter?
Yeah, no, but what the end was, so Cuddles, what the end was that we came to different conclusions about what we believe well-being looks like. He believes well-being can look like, as long as essentially something is alive, right? It seems like things are relatively okay, even in a shit total condition.
No, I believe that well-being is being able to experience joy and having your preferences respected and not being violated, right? And Patty thinks well-being is, okay to violate innocent beings for her benefit. As long as you're able to violate these innocent beings for her benefit, it constitutes well-being. That is what Patty thinks.
That's a whole load of loaded language.
I mean, no, yeah, it is loaded language.
That's not loaded language. That's exactly what Patty said. No, that's exactly what Patty said, right? Like, she said she's okay with processing the cow and deriving benefit of it, rather than leaving it in a barn.
And you disagree with that, right?
Yeah, and I didn't misrepresent Patty here, right? Like, she
no,
said
I didn't say that you misrepresented.
Okay, and you said it's a loaded language. No, it's not a loaded language. What I said was exactly what Patty said.
You don't know how she came. Well, it is. Just calm down,
it is not.
Right? Calm down.
It is not. It is me just accurately representing what she said.
No, it's not so much an accurate representation of what is being said. It's an accurate representation of what's being done, right? What if she comes across a cow on the side of the road? She hasn't done any of those things, right?
I'm sorry, I kind of zoned out. Can we go back?
Well, like, if you're not listening, then...
No, I'm just checking out some text messages that I received. So it happens, right? And we are discussing pretty heavy topics, and I'm being Gish Gallop by 3 people. So
sure, yeah, I get it that, like, it's a fairly big room, but look, like, what if there's a dead cow along the side of the road? Can she eat that?
Okay. Again, ultimately, right? It's about
me.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so sorry, real quick though. I had asked him, I'm not sure if this is explained, right? But I had asked him, if this is about well-being, the new hypothetical is that there's a farmer, they have a choice between slaughtering the animal, or if they don't slaughter this animal, they have limited space, and therefore they do something like put the animal in a small space inside of a barn, a small dark room inside of a barn. And which one should the farmer do? And he got upset with me, didn't want to answer it, and then finally
No,
he
I answered it.
answered it. I was just about to say, finally, he answered it and said, I would put the cow in the small barn. And I said, okay, well, we just have two fundamental ideas about what welfare looks like, because for me, processing that animal is perfectly acceptable.
Okay, so this is why we as vegans oppose the entire idea of seeing animals as resources, right?
We
Like, if you
know
didn't have,
that you, dude, we
yeah,
know that.
okay, so that is why we say that it's wrong to breed animals into existence in the first place, because
Yeah,
then you will
but
be forced to find
that's
these
just you
dichotomous
expressing
situations.
your preferences, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fine to sort of worldview. I'm saying that, like, in your case, how would you handle worldviews that are not yours? We just not engage at all, or we just like, are you just trying to work with people who already have that worldview that you have?
I'm just gonna, I'll just show them that if they were in their own, if they were victims in their own worldview, or if they were subject to their own logic, if they were at the receiving end of their own logic or their own worldviews, they wouldn't accept it.
The fuck does
That's the
that
best I can
mean?
do.
Oh, so you're tempted. So, and in that case, let's say again, I think that's what SC was trying to do for. If they were to accept it, like if I were fine with killing people for political gains, but I was also accepting that I could be killed for political gains, then you would just be like, yeah, do I get the check mark? Is that how that works?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
it
literally
seems
what
like
morality
it, right?
is at that point, right? I mean, wait. I can say that I can just have an opinion that you're being dishonest, but I can't do anything more about it. That's just
I can't just be accepting that, because that's pretty close to the position I have. I have little issues with killing people for political gains, but I also have no issues if I die for it too. Like, I understand either way how that goes.
That's essentially a might makes right worldview, right? If you think about
Yeah,
it,
but
that's
see,
what I say.
like my position is that
everything about power.
like,
That's just
I
power in
think
general.
he's being dishonest.
No, I'm not being dishonest. I
No,
categorized your
but
position as
I'm
might
telling
makes right,
you
and that's
that you're
exactly what it
being
is.
dishonest.
No,
So let me
you're
take
being
a step back. How do you clarify might makes right? I think that might help clear the air here.
Okay, might makes right simply means the one who's mighty gets to have his way, and that is right, and that you essentially are hinting at that, right? Like, you're saying,
Then I
if
can
you are killed for political
assert,
gains,
right?
SD, I'm not talking to you, right? Let me just talk to him for a second, okay? Talk to Anti
Well,
for a second.
you can, of course, but I'm just going to assert that you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong. What is might
No,
makes wrong?
no, you are, because I asserted it, and that's what makes it true.
That's an argument by assertion fallacy. Yeah.
It's not an argument; it's an assertion.
Yeah, when you say that I'm wrong without substantiating it, you're wrong.
Well,
you're
no,
I
I just think you're wrong, and you've already committed to subjectivism, so I don't know why I would.
No, subjectivism simply does not mean that everything else is you need not have logical standards or consistency whatsoever.
But you're wrong about that, though.
I can have subjectivism, and I can still point out internal contradictions.
No, you're wrong about it. You're wrong.
I can't. Unless you bite crazy bullets, where you say that you're okay with being Holocaustic yourself.
I'm sorry,
yes,
sir, but no, you can't.
All right.
You're just wrong.
No, okay. Just because I'm a subjectivist, that doesn't mean I cannot identify logical contradictions in somebody else's worldview.
Yeah, but you're wrong about them.
No, I'm not wrong about them.
No, you are, because I told you.
That's an argument by assertion fallacy. That's what
it yeah.
Just to take it back to the might makes right thing. So you're saying might makes right is that, like, when a power structure like asserts their own norms, like how all states work and how like most political parties work, or that's what I'm confused. Because, like, let's say vegans, right? Vegans want to acquire political power to like enforce the end of animal agriculture. Would that not be might makes right in your view, or?
It would be, but veganism in itself, like as a philosophy, it's not based on might makes right. Veganism, when it's imposed on a civilization, it will require
the.
Wouldn't that apply to all philosophies? I'm a communist, right? I can literally say that communism isn't necessarily might makes right. It's just that when it's enforced, then I'll seize all your property, collectivize it. But it's not might makes right though, because the philosophy itself.
It is right. Like, if you think about it, communism is simply about wanting the laborers and the proletariat to retain the power structures. Correct?
But that's your assessment.
It's literally trying to end class society. It's trying to collapse the power structure. But it will involve seizing property, but that's like on the political level.
By might, right? Because somebody who is a private individual might have acquired their fortunes by perfectly legitimate means, but you would want to prevent that as well, correct?
But so the idea is that like socialists probably wouldn't view any form of like wealth creation under capitalism as like legitimate or like good, or they wouldn't care if it was anyway. So that's why I would say the might rakes right angle seems very odd in the sense that it, like, how would this apply to veganism and not any other philosophy, and vice versa. But again, that was just a minor point, to be honest.
Okay, so what is the non-vegan worldview? It simply states that we can exploit animals for our benefit. Is that correct? Am I?
Well, you can say moral omnivorism. You can juxtapose it to moral omnivorism, which is just saying that like either saying that more consumption of animal products is either neutral or good by some means. So yeah.
I mean, at that point, you'll have to have axioms like causing suffering is good or something like that. That is the only way you can get to that.
Or we can say that causing suffering is not necessarily on the highest priority, which is pretty accurate for me, because I would say that my moral view is not really resolved around like reducing suffering. Like I, for one, am not a communist because I think it reduces suffering, for example. So that can very easily be accepted by some. But yeah, I wouldn't say they want to maximize suffering though. I just say they don't care about reducing it as much as vegans might tend to.
Or you're okay with causing suffering. Okay, I would simply put it this way: you're okay with treating animals the way you wouldn't want to be treated.
Yeah, like I said, like communism will probably be pretty awful for many of the capitalists in question, but yeah, I probably don't care that I would cause them suffering. So yeah, it is what it is.
I'm not sure I follow there. Can you repeat that again?
I'm saying political change will necessarily have like people who benefit and people who like will not benefit, right? So there will be suffering involved in pretty much any political system. At least in the transition, but I probably don't care much about them.
Guys, for clarity's sake, there should be a distinction whether or not you think non-vegans have to be okay with all kinds of suffering or just a subset of some types of suffering. Because if you're asserting that non-vegans have to sign off on all possible suffering in order to be non-vegan, that would be false.
Yeah. Well, that too. But I was saying that, yeah, it could be the case that for some non-vegans, they're motivated by just a lack of suffering. But I acknowledge that I'm a bit more in the extreme end. Even for most non-vegans, they usually value suffering at least to some level. It might be only for humans or only for their kin circle, but it's usually there somewhere.
But also, like, being non-vegan, you don't actually have to accept suffering. You mostly just have to accept killing, right? As long as we classify suffering as some negative phenomenological experience, you can still be anti-suffering while being non-vegan.
Yeah, technically, like the welfare's position, right? If you kill them painlessly, for example, yeah.
But yeah, since VSS's statement was that vegan or non-veganism is only accomplishable by a pro-suffering position, I just think that's false.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the infinite valid arguments point. So it's just like so trying to reduce it down to it's either this position or this other position is actually really hard to do in ethics because there's usually like 50 trillion others.
Fallacy of a single cause, right? Like there's just no way you're going to be able to prove the particular, I mean, quote unquote axiom. I don't really use that kind of moral language, but whatever. That it has to come one way, or I guess it would just be more of an argument from ignorance, right? It's like I can't think of any other way to sustain the position, therefore it is the position.
Yeah. I think we actually read a paper on that in your server that was kind of like trying to do a similar thing for moral realism, where it's like, well, it has to be this case because that's the only possible explanation. It's like, yeah, that's a bit of a reach.
Anyways, I'm going.
One second. Here's the thing, right?
No problem.
Here's the thing, right? Like, if you have totally different set of moral axioms, I don't know how I can convince anyone of any moral proposition, right? I cannot convince you on human suffering. I cannot convince you on animal suffering.
You have to engage in every conversation with the intent of convincing people. Like, do you engage with the intent to learn? Be about your own position.
Yeah, that's
I can, right? Like,
why would you come to a discussion with the intent of converting everyone to veganism, but not an attempt to learn about the way people think?
No, I perfectly know how people think, right? I accept that some people have different moral axioms, and
you perfectly.
No, I do. Let me explain. I came to this chat room. I'm sorry. I came to this voice chat because I was told by one of my friends that somebody was justifying the dairy industry by saying it's a morally better outcome for the cows. It enhances their well-being or something like that. Okay. So I was under the assumption that we had some common concern for the well-being of these animals. And people were assuming that getting cows pregnant repeatedly just so we could drink their secretions constitutes a moral action. I wanted to clarify that part.
Wait, why would that follow? That doesn't seem like it follows.
No, wait. But here we are with people who have not agreed upon one set of
you don't get to just like fucking like sweep that under the rug. Why would it follow that people think?
Why would what follow?
Well, I'm asking you, right? Why would it follow that people think that like cow secretions follow on from like the kind of moral torture or something that you were discussing earlier? Why would that be the case? Because that's obviously not the case.
How do you know? What do you mean by that's obviously not the case? Getting a female animal pregnant just so you could repeatedly...
But why?
How
does that happen?
Just so you could...
Okay, stop.
What do you mean, how does it happen?
I see, no, the very description of it is
it's loaded language.
Of it is loaded. It's loaded language by its very description. The way in which someone like me the way in which someone like me or a vet, someone who for me works in agriculture or vet would describe it is, right, a heifer getting pregnant, right? We may engage in artificial insemination to impregnate a heifer so that it can now have a calf. That calf will be taken by the farmer because typically dairy heifers aren't good moms. And then we use the dairy from that animal to feed both the calf and the person. Do you see the difference in which the language I gave was honest and true language? It was also scientific in nature and not emotionally driven.
No, I just said you get a female animal repeatedly pregnant just so you could drink her milk. And when this animal is no longer
you've already got it wrong.
Let me finish. And when this animal is no longer profitable, you send her to slaughter. What part of what I said is false? That's literally me describing your industry.
Language is not saying that entertainments are untrue, but that there's a lot of normative implications already assumed in the language. That's probably what we're saying. When we say just so that, it's a sort of trivializing. But I say this nation brutally.
Why else are you breeding these animals into existence? Why else are you breeding these animals into existence? Because you want to drink her milk and eat her flesh, her baby's flesh.
But
and again, that itself is also.
So what I said is not false. What I said is exactly true. Whereas you're trying to, downplay the seriousness of it.
No, stop.
That is true.
Not what you said.
No, it's not true.
That's not what you said.
I said,
look,
getting a female animal pregnant.
Just ask him to.
That's not what you said. You said, this is what you said, almost verbatim. What you said was, how is it not wrong to forcefully impregnate a female animal against her will to drink her secretions? That's what you said, almost verbatim.
No, but now what did I say? You're getting a female animal repeatedly pregnant just so you could drink her milk and eat her baby's flesh. And then when
who says that it's just for that?
Why are you interrupting constantly? Why don't you let me finish my argument, SD?
Because you don't have an argument. That's why.
No, I have an argument. I'm making a statement here. I just said you're getting this animal repeatedly pregnant, and when she's no longer profitable, you're sending her to
wrong. You're wrong at the beginning.
How is any part of what I said wrong, factually or morally, or intent-wise?
I can tell you why it's factually wrong.
No, none of what I said is wrong. None of what I said is wrong.
No, it is wrong.
I never said that. So when I say you're calling you loaded language, right? I'm actually not saying you're wrong.
It's not loaded language either. I would say you're using euphemisms in the name of science.
Sorry, you don't think that it stopped. You don't think that if I were to say to you, if I were to do this, right? If I were to describe an OBGYN appointment and say that the doctor puts you on a cold table as you're shivering and then sticks your hand up your fucking vagina and then sticks something cold in your vagina just to look at your cervix, am I not using loaded language?
Yeah, we might have a different understanding of how word connotations work there. Because when you say, you're doing it against
why is that being done?
That's like,
okay,
that's definitely something.
Patty, that's being done to investigate your own health, okay? And it's going to ultimately benefit you. Catch any diseases you may have early on, okay? But you're doing this. You're doing this to the cow.
Stop.
This is dumb.
Same thing. It is dumb. This is the same thing for a cow. The act of putting. Why don't you listen to someone who is actually in the field instead of just saying stupid shit over and over?
Who has vested interest? Who has vested interest?
To put your hand.
Who has vested interest?
That's not
Wait, who has vested interest in getting this cow pregnant just so she could benefit from
you
it?
didn't want to be interrupted,
You're
right?
gonna complain about people talking over you. Don't talk about fucking over others. Shut the fuck up, please.
So just to be clear, I don't own dairy cows. I don't own dairy cows. I don't do artificial insemination, right? Because I deal with goats and rabbits. So I don't own dairy cows. I don't have a financial invested interest. Be quiet. I don't have a vested in. Be quiet.
I'm not going to be quiet. You weren't quiet when I was talking, right? SD was not quiet.
I don't have a vested and financial interest in defending the dairy industry. Do I like milk? Fuck yeah. Do I like chocolate milk? Fuck yeah. But do I own dairy cows? Fuck no. I don't own dairy cows. Way too fucking hard. So, right? What I said was quite clear. Well, sorry, it wasn't clear because you interrupted me. Oh, he left. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, he left.
So just for the room, right? You don't have to do artificial insemination in order to engage in the procedure of putting your hand up a cow's anus.
Wait, so hang on. I want clarity. Like, sure. I don't have to put my hand up a cow's asshole to have cheese?
Wait, if you want milk, right, then the cow has to be pregnant.
Yeah, but like, you know, cheese follows
but you
on.
Don't have to.
Right?
You don't have to engage in like artificial insemination for a cow to be pregnant.
So I don't have to have like a fistful of cow shit in order to like have some cheese.
No.
I mean, wow. I think
as if I don't already know that anyway.
But you can literally, if you want, like, cows get checks all the time, and one of those checks, even when they're not pregnant, and even if they're male, is to put your hand up their ass. So it doesn't, in this case, right, like, he laughed and didn't like that I was going to say that it's not just for AI, but it's actually the case, right, that it includes outside of AI.
Yeah, I mean, like, who cares what?
I mean, yeah, I was trying to be nice, and it felt like we were almost making some progress in some areas, but then it was kind of just switching up a bit weirdly. Like, first it was about consent, then it's about sentience, then it's like, you know, how does that relate to the consent part? It's like informed consent. It's like, I don't know.
I shit you not, like, the whole time talking to this guy, once one thing is done, right, that he can no longer argue about, he switch. It's a switch, and then not only that, like, not only the switches, but then also loaded language. You can't have a scientific and objective conversation about anything with obnoxiously loaded language. If I wanted to sit here and talk about, for example, the behavior of chimpanzees, and someone were to say, yeah, well, this chimpanzee took a baby and then smashed its head against a rock and laughed as it did so, and what's really going on is having to explain the behavior of chimpanzees weeding out their competitors' genetics. You can't have a conversation, can't have a real conversation with that person using the loaded language.
Yeah, and I guess we were trying to get into meta